The voice of the drum calls. It sings a song of those who came before us and those to come. A song of survival and strength. A song of participation and voice. A song that calls us together. When we come together and participate in the 2010 census, we use this tool as the voice of all our Native people. Our voice. It is in our hands. 2010 census.
So welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Wednesday, March 10th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. Many of the stories right here can also be found at our website at Indian Country TV or IndianCountryNews.com. Here are the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. Federal prosecutors in Utah said this week that despite the death of an undercover informant, they'll move ahead with cases against more than 20 people charged after a long-running artifacts looting investigation. The operative's death may prompt prosecutors to change their strategy at trial, but the setback isn't enough for them to scrap the cases, said acting U.S. Attorney for Utah, Carly Christensen. She declined to provide more details. Defense attorneys indicated they'll ask a federal judge to limit what kind of evidence can be presented at trial when it comes to Ted Gardner, a Utah businessman who worked with the FBI and the U.S. Bureau of Land Management for 2 years. He secretly recorded deals for American Indian artifacts in the Four Corners area. Gardner provided hundreds of hours of footage for investigators that are central to the prosecutor's case. He died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound March 1st in what police called an apparent suicide. On March 3rd, Roger Brout-Tagan, director of the California Department of Indian Veteran Affairs, swore in Pedro Molina Pascuyaki as the nation's first Assistant Secretary for Native American Veterans Affairs. This new position was created by the state to oversee the administration of services to Native American veterans in California, which boasts the largest population of American Indian veterans in the country. Approximately 200 people, including many from various California tribes, and invited representatives of the National American Indian Veterans participated in the unique swearing-in ceremony held in front of the Calvet building in Sacramento, California. Molina served in the U.S. Army from 1970 to 1973. I'm proud that California is the first in the nation to have an Assistant Secretary of Native American Veterans Affairs, said Governor Schwarzenegger about the appointment. The Haskell Indian Nations University Commencement Fast Pitch Committee announces their 16th annual tournament to be held during the commencement weekend of May 8th and 9th at the Clinton Lakes Sports Complex in Lawrence, Kansas. And if you want to go down there, you need to get a hold of, you got to get a hold of S. Gertie at haskell.edu or call her at 785-979-5501, and we'll put that stuff up on the board here for you to get it. The National American Indian Housing Council, the only national Indian organization solely advocating on behalf of tribal housing issues, is pleased to announce that Ms. Tracy Hobson has been selected as the new Governmental Affairs Director. Ms. Hobson will lead the organization's tribal housing advocacy agenda. Ms. Hobson is a licensed attorney from North Carolina focusing in real estate and Native American law. She has worked as a court solicitor for the Toho'odum Nation and a tribal prosecutor for the White Mountain Apache in the past. And in our continuing discussions about health care in this country, we go back to Shoshone Bannock tribal member Mark Trahant for a little bit of an update on Indian Health Service and Facebook.
We gotta go here. Welcome to the Native News Update, Mark. Let's talk a little bit about your latest column. And
okay.
That column is entitled, Why Facebook Complaints About the Indian Health Service Are Important. And it's a little bit of a story about a Facebook site that goes by the name of, I just spent 6 hours at IHS just for them to give me Tylenol. How many members does that site have?
Well, when I first wrote about it, it was 1,500. It's up to 1,700 now and climbing pretty fast. It's catching an important strain out there, and it's an important one to recognize that there are a lot of people frustrated by the waits and the customer service of Indian Health Service.
And so how can, it's interesting, the phenomena of social media, and whether you're a politician that has to respond or you're a major corporation that has to respond to citizen complaints, that it might be Twitter or it might be Facebook that you're facing up against in terms of someone saying something, and all of a sudden you're on the defense.
Right. Well, and I would not frame it that way, because I think it's a remarkable opportunity. In the old way of looking at things, it would be something where you'd be on the defense, and criticism is something where your neck hairs climb and you start to think, oh no, what do I do to put this off? How do I make it go away? Where in social media, criticism is like gold. It's bits of information that you can use to reshape a system. And the whole point of my column is I think IHS should embrace it. They should learn from it. They should try to, I would go to the extent of having terminals and kiosks in IHS waiting rooms so people could access social media in those settings. And for elderly and people who don't use computers, help them through it. Because I think as a learning tool, there's nothing that compares.
Well, you've got a captive audience. In some cases, they may not be up to par, but there's people sitting there that are in fairly good health with some kind of an injury that are sitting there for hours. And wouldn't just the fact that you had a computer power there, was it Alaska, you said that patients can access their own records?
Right.
And
And
review them?
What this represents is people who really care about making the system better. These are not folks that are going somewhere else, which a lot of people have the opportunity to do, but who are saying, thick and thin, I'm here. And those are the kind of people you want to figure out how to make it work for.
Okay, so you see people are saying they're at a clinic, that particular clinic has a Facebook site or a Twitter site. Sit down and tell us what you think about services. Is that how simple it is?
Absolutely. In fact, I think it would make sense to have a Facebook site or some social medium for virtually every clinic and facility, so it could be tailored to that specific situation.
You see this as extending to other services. I mean, you've been on this healthcare kick, and that's obviously what you're focused on, but don't you think that the whole concept serves as well for any other particular kind of service that may be out there, maybe in a school education system or something like that?
You bet. Really across the board, from news organizations to any institution that can learn by having a direct communication with its primary clients.
Have we seen any sign that anyone from Indian Health Service is looking at this Facebook site that's up here that has these complaints on it?
Well, there is a social media team being developed at IHS, and hopefully they'll look at this. I went through and read the different members to see if I could see any IHS names, and none that I recognize at least popped up. I do think it's important to note that some of the people posting said good things about IHS. It's not all doom and gloom. There's some people saying, based on the services, here's my situation, and it wasn't bad.
No, and that's why people shouldn't just fear it as a forum where people can say negative things. You can have positive things, and part of it is just simply to be able to respond. That patients have good ideas at times.
Exactly, and I haven't seen any response at all. It's at least in the page itself, it's as if IHS doesn't exist. It's very one way.
Well, we'll be interested to see if IHS doesn't take a visit to it after they see the latest Native News update. Mark, thanks for your update on that. We'll catch up to you a week on our continuing discussion of healthcare and see what's going on next week. You're going to D.C. for some health-oriented seminars or something?
Oh, I'll be there for a week. I'll be doing some reporting. So, yeah, I'll be checking in on the healthcare situation.
We'll touch base with you. Thanks for joining with us.
Very good.
And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to thank you all for joining with us. Come back again real soon. Miigwech.